Hello, everybody, and welcome to Aquarian Radio. This is a
Blog Talk Radio.
simulcast.
Welcome to Blog Talk Radio. Please hold and you will be able to listen to the show.
The websites are not responsible for what guest hosts or call-ins may say. All programming is intended for informational and entertainment purposes only.
Hello, world. This
Hello,
is TJ
everybody.
Marsh, and
Hi.
you're listening to our syndication with
here,
Janet Clair. Listen. Go ahead, Janet.
We have two shows calling it at the same time, so we haven't done this in about 3 years, so we're having fun here. Anyway, we are syndicated. I was in the middle of saying hello to everybody, and then your disclaimer came in. It's like, what? Okay. Anyway, let me pick up, and then we'll go back to TJ, and TJ can say hi. But this is a panel with Karen Gresham Nickell, Janet Clair, Lessin, Teresa Jeanette Thurman Morris. Okay, and today's an episode of UFO Secret Space, and this is part 2. We did our part 1 show with Karen in our panel last week, and it was so much fun. We're doing it again. We might do this forever. Who knows? We'll do it periodically. But Karen,
I don't know if I can live that long.
none of us know how long we're going to live anymore. It's like you used to think you had a certain amount of time, and then these pandemics come in. It's like, oh no, this might be my last day. This might be my last year. It's a new way of thinking of the world and life. Anyway, I'm not going to go through Karen's bio. I have a page up on aquarianradio.com. I think TJ has it up on her website, so she'll tell you about where she's listed today's show. So I will pass the talking stick to TJ, and I'm so you learned our voices. I'm Janet Clair Lessin, and that's TJ. And Karen, say hello. So we got your voice.
Hi. Yeah, I'm glad to be here tonight with you guys. It's always fun. We always have a good time.
Yes, we do. Okay, TJ. Now I'm past. So we have this virtual talking stick, and the other person is supposed to shut up when the person gets the talking stick. It's a theory. It doesn't always work. I'm passing it to TJ, and it doesn't mean you take it to the whole time. You're supposed to talk for about 3 minutes to 5 minutes, and then you pass it on because it's a round table. We're going around the table. Okay, TJ. Hello.
Okay.
Your turn.
Hi,
TJ.
Janet. Yeah, Janet's in Hawaii. Hi, Karen.
Hi, and I'm in Dallas.
I'm in Florida.
Oh, wow.
You're in Dallas, and Janet's in Maui.
Triangle.
So, folks, we got a good thing going here. There are 3 women. I've got it called Cosmic Awakening on my site, Ascension Age, with Karen Gresham Nickell, Janet K. Lessin, and Teresa J., because it wouldn't let me. I already had too much on it. But at least when it shows up on Spreaker and on YouTube, it'll show Karen, Janet, and Teresa up there. But this one for me is Cosmic Awakening, Ascension Age. Now, Janet, on the Spreaker, when it hits YouTube, what's your show called tonight? I can't see your title. What's your title?
I put it up on UFO Secret Space because that's a site we created a couple of years ago. We both have, at least at one point, we both had a copy of it. So I looked the other day and I still have it. And so that's where we have it for now. But
those are great
we might
titles,
call
both
it,
of them.
yeah. Well, we have all these names we put up there. It's too many, but I looked and I saw that I still have the website. But what do you want to talk about? I think last week we started on, a bunch of different things. I forget all we talked about. It was a really good show. But Karen,
I tell you what, I would like to hear. I would like to hear, Janet, what your background in relation to Zecharia Sitchin. That was really interesting. Would you tell us about that?
I would. So in 1997, I moved in with Dr. Lessin. I was living on Oahu. I met him at a conference, and he was teaching Tantra in Santa Cruz, I think it was Santa Cruz, California, or Santa Clara. Anyway, we met at Mount Madonna, wherever that is, and it was a yogic ashram type place. and we were doing a conference there. We were renting out their space, and we were attending a conference, and Dr. Lessin Sasha was teaching the Tantra. And I had always wanted to formally study Tantra. I was back dating again. I had been married monogamously since I was 16, so I was in my 40s, 42, 43 then. So after like 20 years of being married to different people, 22 years, I wanted to study relationships. I wanted to know why my relationships kept failing. and the common element was me, of course. So it was like, well, there must be something I'm doing wrong. So I ended up contacting the teacher of the Tantra part of this whole conference. And I said, I want to come to your part of the conference. What are you going to charge me? And he said, I waive my fees entirely. I went, what? I thought, this is the nicest person in the world. You know, he's supposed to get a couple $100. He doesn't know me from anyone. And so he waived his fee. So I firmed what I needed to do, plane tickets and getting a ride to the conference. And we were late, of course, because we had to connect with a third person, ride sharing. And when I got there, the only seat left was right across from him. And so we were looking at each other the entire workshop. And, I was attracted to him, but so was a lot of other people. You know, it was almost like we were in a meat market and the other people were taking numbers. I want him. We were like, I don't have a chance in the world. This man could gather a harem here. So, anyway, fate meant that we were to come together. And when we went on the break, he came up to me right away. I went, oh, that's like my fantasy come true. And he's tall. He's like 6 foot, and I'm 5'2". And he said, oh, I thought you were taller. And then he thought for a second. He goes, oh, it must be your aura. You've got a really big aura. So anyway, we hit it off. And by the end of the conference, I was just like madly in love with him. And we kept running into each other everywhere we went. So this is a long story short. We fell in love. I was living in Oahu, and I just had a bunch of dysfunctional friendships and potential, sex partners or potential partners. But there was nobody that I wanted to be with. There was nobody I would want to marry, right? And deep down in my heart, I wanted to get married again. I like being married. So I ended up going back. We went to the second conference in upstate New York. I saw my parents for the last time when they were in Pennsylvania. I didn't know it was the last time I was going to ever see them, but they both died in that following. Well, my mom died later in that year, and then my dad died 2 years later. So anyway, so after we met at these 2 conferences, we ended up making love and falling in love, and I went back and I told all my dysfunctional relationships of leaving, and I moved to Maui. I just moved in with him. It was absolutely insane. You don't do that, right? But my heart was just so full, and it's like I had this invisible checklist, and he met every check in the yes yes column. It was like yes. And I said, if I do not just take this chance and get on a plane and move over there, I will regret it the rest of my existence, because I will have missed this opportunity. And, of course, it was magical. Now, one of the people that he was involved with over here in Maui was the people from the Prophets Conference. So, ironically, because I'm in the New Age spiritual movement and always been involved with that, I had somehow found them on the Internet. Now, we're talking 1997. And I had been on the Internet since, 1990, 91, 92, 93, because I worked at Penn State University, and the universities were the first people to get the Internet. And we didn't know what it was called until then. And so since I was in computer science, that's part of my background, I was teaching people how to use their software and helping Penn State University. We were transferring from paper, the old forms you fill out, to a whole system, which was 40,000 people ended up using. And I was part of the IT team. And involved in all the meetings, and I always end up in the president's office. So I ended up in the CEO's office who reported to the president because they don't remember his name. But we're talking about the head of a 40,000 person organization, and then they have, 100,000 students or something. So there I was, doing, and I'm only like a moderate computer science person. So, but I learned that whenever you need help, you get a geek. So anyway, fast forward, I got involved with I learned about listservs and emails and how to find people. So I found Cody and Robin Johnston. Now, Cody and Robin were tech savvy, right? And so it was just so weird when I ended up living with Dr. Lessin that he says, "Oh, my friends are coming over." And he said who they were. I go, "The Prophet Conference people." He goes, "Yeah, they're my best friend. They've known for 20 years. I go, "Oh, my God." So, this is how my life was magical and mystical. So I ended up getting an invitation to become the first Zechariah Sitchin certification program because they were sponsoring Zechariah Sitchin. And so back up a couple months before this invitation came, I didn't know how to tell my husband that I was an ET contactee experiencer, right? It's like, how do you tell your husband that, right? And so I put The Gods of Eden by William Bromley on the back of his toilet seat, the little shelf above it, because he always reads in the bathroom, right? He always reads there. And it sat there for a while, and I go, "Oh, this isn't working." And I was really kind of afraid of saying it because the worst thing would have been I got rejected. "Oh, you're some kind of, UFO nut." Blah, blah, blah. But he came out of the bathroom one day, and someone goes, "Where did you get that book?" I go, "Well, I brought it." And he said, "Is there more?" So he ended up actually going with me down to Borders. There were Borders. That's our generation. And we bought every book they had on Zechariah Sitchin, and then what they didn't have in stock, we ordered. So he just became totally addicted because it answered his questions he had when he was a young anthropology student, doing his dissertation, doing his field work, and he would encounter these things that were not in the box. And in fact, in those days in academia, they kept pushing you into the box. If you had any ideas outside of the box, it's like, "No, you must conform. Do you want to get your PhD? Yeah, well, you better buy, the party line and not really say all this stuff." So he had encountered stuff, and they were just, things he couldn't explain. But when I got him into the Sitchin books, it was just phenomenal. So then when we got the invitation, and we didn't have a lot of money, but we pulled it together each and every time. It was like the universe wanted us to do this. And so he was hooked. So anyway, we were blessed to study with Zechariah. Now, Zechariah was a little wonderful, strange man, had a funny voice. He was, and I'm learning the difference. There's Hasidic Jews, Orthodox Jews, secular Jews. My husband was raised. He's very kind of New Age Jew, very loosey-goosey. And each of them have different, it's kind of like, the Catholics and the Christians and the Mormons, different sections. So he was kind of New Age Jewish, but Zechariah was probably Orthodox. So he was always conflicted about how did these things resolve with his studies. And so studying, I saw Shitzel recently on, it was in an episode, and I highly recommend it. It was about these Jewish people, their culture, but all they do is study the Torah. They study it like every moment of their lives. The men do. They go every day and study it. So of course Zechariah was part of that culture where all they do is study it. And they actually they take it apart, word by word, syllable by syllable, letter by letter. And that's how he got immersed in the study, because that was his culture. I guess this whole new revelation about the culture. So he was so, and they're detail oriented. So he wrote a series of, I don't know how many books. It was like between 10 and 20 books by the time he passed. Died at the age of 90, and we were there studying. So at some point he said, because the men are always revered as the scholars, so Dr. Lessin gets invited to kind of pick up the baton. Zechariah was getting up there, and he didn't know how long he had to live, so he goes over to Dr. Lessin, and they have this conversation about, can you help me create an educational program? Because Dr. Lessin was a PhD, and he taught at the University of Hawaii, Manoa, and he was a guest teacher in California, and he was up in Oregon, he was up in Alaska, so he taught everywhere at a PhD level in universities, in various parts of the world. So that's where we started. But he had already started immersing himself in Christian studies because it confirmed his beliefs in studies and the missing links, the missing holes in what he was learning as an anthropologist. So anyway, there we are. So we've written 5 books on the Anunnaki. He's working on the 6th book. He used to teach comparative religion, so he's going into now looking at from the Anunnaki's perspective, putting them in the equation, and then re-looking at all the religions. So he taught comparative religion like in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, maybe even to the 90s. So now he's just applying Sitchin studies. And we've gone way beyond Sitchin, because Sitchin's been dead since over the 2010. So it's 10 years later. So he's always studying.
Yeah,
my husband gets up at 1 and 2 in the morning, and he just studies. Yeah. So next person.
Well, that's wonderful. I mean, I've always been fascinated with Sitchin's books. What an education experience you had with that. That's great.
It's ongoing. So we're probably going to do a bunch of recordings. I'm getting the glitches out of his computer, and I just got him a new mic, and we're going to do a whole series, an educational series. So if anybody's interested,
that'd be great. That'd be really good.
And we're going to do some webinars on it, because nobody goes into this level of detail. But like you said, now there's all these people out there, and there's a lot of people that are bashing the information and putting their own spin to it. So, of course, Ancient Aliens did that for the last, I don't know how many years they're doing, 15 years now or something? Ancient Aliens.
They've been They've been honoring Sitchin?
No, the television show. So they put everybody comes along, puts their twist in. It's like the old game when you would whisper in somebody's ear, and then by the time you come full circle, you could see how twisted things are. So everybody's putting a twist into all the information. It's just like, Christianity, right? It's like, there's a bunch of twists in there, too. So not much you can do about that except look in your own heart and soul and say, what resonates with me?
Yeah, everybody should realize they have their own walk, and, but you will find, I think, especially now, I think everybody's very shaken with the surroundings that affects the energy, and there's some people whose issues bring them to put others down or take their, deal that they haven't cleaned out their origin yet.
Yeah, you see who people who feel the need to put somebody else down, that's a level of insecurity on their end.
It is.
So if you were just objective of your own behavior, say, why do I have to, cut somebody else down? Why can't I just stand on my own merit and my own beliefs? So I think it's really important in the COVID times.
I think so, too. I think everybody puts their own idea, and, I think it's really helpful when people can get into their emotional, heart chakra instead of get out of their head. And then they see a lot of things work out and clear in order to raise that up.
Yeah, you can. If you find yourself being harsh or critical, if you just imagine the chakra system and pulling it down in through your heart chakra, and then say it again. Say it from your heart. It'll usually come out. That's just a simple exercise. But if you find yourself, really projecting or being insecure and critical, you might want to do some therapy on that. And really look at.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
really. And they should be asking those questions themselves because they're the one who came in with the lesson. And if they don't get it neutralized, it'll go back out with them. Yeah.
Right. It's hard to be objective about yourself. So that's why we have our mirrors in the world. Yeah, go ahead.
I've been amazed here in my part of the United States how people are not using their mask or their gloves. And it's really, really tricky. Now, I live in an area called the Dallas-Fort Worth area. And in Arlington, which is a suburb of Fort Worth, in between Dallas and Fort Worth, they do it. They have good guidelines. They follow. In Dallas, you rarely see anybody with one. It's really something.
So I wonder how, and this thing doesn't have a breakdown of cities. It just has states. I'm looking for one of the chart sites that say what's going on. Now, I wonder if
they have the map come up some.
Yeah.
Yeah. Have you seen it under the light? Because they've shown what it's like under a certain kind of light, what the virus looks like. It's pretty scary. And the little specks that are everywhere. Yeah, they have that on CNN a lot. They just had it about 30 minutes. It's interesting. A certain kind of camera that they take if somebody's breathing and how to measure the particles from the breathing as opposed to the surfaces and all of that. So, yeah, and now masks are becoming a fashion play. Yeah.
We were talking about Nancy Pelosi.
I think it's a good thing that, in a way, it should show people that, to seek, to ask questions, because this is a play. We're in a play, a momentary play.
Right.
We've all been in many, and then we're forever. So as much as we can learn whatever we came in here for, then we neutralize what the issue is, as you all know, and then we don't have to do it anymore. But if we don't get it neutralized, it stays in our electromagnetic field and all of our cellular molecular structure and goes forward to the next place.
Right.
So, so that's interesting.
So this is karmic, and this is energy, and this is breath, and this is life, and this isn't the first rodeo we've been in. We've been in pandemics in other lives. I have a deep soul memory of being in with the plague and other things, and so when that came around this time, I went, oh no, not this again. Oh my God.
Yeah.
And ironically, I'm watching Catherine the Great, and she had to deal with smallpox, right? And they just killed people, and they were dropping every dead, and they were just taking all their serfs out to a field and burning them. So you see fires burning every night, right? And so apparently I don't know how much is true. It's like a parody on Catherine and Peter the Great, but she learned about, they had a different term for it, but basically it's like what we do, the vaccines. And so she got a little bit of a pus from somebody that had died. It's like getting the antibodies, right? And she put her knife in it, and in front of everybody, because she says, we can't be afraid of this, she takes the knife and she stabs in her hand, or, in her, the upper part of her hand, and she, injects herself with it. So she had read about this and talked about it with a colleague who, all they did was read about it in the books. This is how you handle this pandemic. And so, of course, she didn't get it. And so she started inoculating her people, and they they eliminated the smallpox.
Wow, that's
at least at that time.
interesting.
And that was in the 1700s. So this has been around. We've had viruses and pandemics for a long time. And, of course, in the Dark Ages, this goes back to the Anunnaki. They said that they saw it became the prototype for the Grim Reaper, right? So they saw these people in masks, and they were spraying the fields. And the next day, that town would have the plague, right? So they were spraying it, and people were breathing it in. So somebody back in around the year 1000, and I'd say it was an advanced race that knew about biochemical warfare, purposely infected, because they wanted to keep the population down. So when humans were breeding and they had too many humans, there was some faction of, I suppose, with the Anunnaki, was calling the population and getting it down to a manageable number. So here we have a history of it.
Yeah, that is. That's interesting.
Yeah.
And it's interesting in the personalities and how people are, and time also, too. You know, I posted that little video that you all have seen, you know, that was sent to me by a dear friend, and it's called The Volunteers. And it's the two little girls telepathically talking. It's totally darling. Have you seen it, Teresa?
I saw that one, yeah. TJ,
and
did you see that video? Are you there, TJ, or are you on mute?
Yeah, I'm here. I had done mute when y'all were talking. I don't know what. Did I miss it? I don't know what video you're talking about.
Okay. I posted it, and I try to post it every week because I try to reach people. And it probably passes through the news. I don't know I don't tag people because I feel like I'm intrusive on their timeline. I should, but I don't. But this, I just put it up there and I post it and repost it, and because people really need to see it, and it's cute. It's
on
soft,
your domain.
sweet.
On your domain name.
I don't know what your domain is. It's on my Facebook, my timeline on Facebook.
Oh, social media.
Social media.
I don't check people's social media.
Oh, okay.
I don't even check my own. So unless people are into social media, I guess because I'm always doing stuff, but I just don't check people's social media. But if you want me to see it, I guess we should. That's the reason I guess we're meeting on these radio shows, Karen, because, everybody is different, and I guess people don't know that.
A lot of people don't
really
like social media. A lot of people don't like Facebook.
Yeah.
But especially, that's how it is right now. In fact, I heard on the news somewhere that they're thinking about maybe things might always become even more virtual and even more technologically, I don't know, astute in some way. But I find that, when I look at the news, it's like looking at the newspaper.
Wait.
People's names.
Yeah, go ahead. I didn't hear one at a time. Finish
what
your
you say about
say yours.
Yeah.
Oh, I just think it's kind of like a newspaper for our field, by everybody that we're friends with. We get to see, what they're doing on the thing. That's what I do. And then I got this sent to me, and I posted it. I thought it was just fantastic. So I can send it to you if you'd like. I can message you, or I can text it to you.
Well, yeah.
Or you can go on my timeline and
you
scroll
have a domain
here? Because we're friends.
Yeah, what I do
Facebook.
is I go to people's. Yeah, I'll pull your name up in Karen. I'll pull your name up and see what comes up. But usually, what I'll do is I guess because we build shows, is I go to a person's name or website and look for them. Karen Gresham Nickell, right?
Yeah, I don't put all that.
So
on
you
my
should
website.
have a page come up in Google. Oh,
I
okay.
have a
Karen
page
Gresham
that's
Nickell.
my company. I have a page that's my company. It's Altius Opus. But I need to keep it up. I don't keep it up very much. And I'll just put something like this on just my personal. But I can send it to people.
Yeah, Karen Gresham Nickell.
Yeah, I can
but
send
it
it to
was
you.
something that you. Oh,
I just sent it to
well,
you.
wait, I'm looking. Okay.
Yeah, I just sent it.
All right.
To you. Okay, so
well,
you
I'll
can
look
look
at
that
that
when we have some time. It's very cute. About
when we're off radio.
two alien girls. They look like regular girls, and they're talking about when they volunteered to come to Earth and what they learned. And I've only watched it once or twice. Forget all what it said. Very pertinent, very relevant.
It is very and very
talking
sweet.
About the crazy humans. Very sweet.
Very sweet. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So.
Well, yeah, but you have a nice. I'm looking at your domain, KarenGresham.com, folks. That's who Karen is. And Altius Opus. Why don't you tell us about that, Karen? Because I see the name, but I have no clue what that means. So I'm looking. Nice website.
I had Amplius Opus at one time, and then I've had Altior Ipsi. I've always been drawn to the Latin names, probably because of so many lives I've had in Italy and in the Latin countries. But this last one was Altius Opus, which means higher awakening. And all of them kind of have meant that. Altior Ipsi, Amplius Opus, and then Altius Opus. So this is what I have now. It's just a name that I have for my company, and I just don't need to. I need to probably work on my page a lot more because I have a tendency to put everything on my personal thing. So yeah, it's helping people.
Well, this is Karen Gresham.
Yeah, I keep it that way.
This is a nice one, the one I'm looking at.
That's my website. Yeah.
That's nice. Yeah.
Thank you.
So that's I like people to have websites. A good, especially being readers, we need a good web presence. But it's a very nice one. And you've got your psychic directory on the bottom left. You've got your professional associations. Yeah, that's nice. And on LinkedIn, a lot of the people in professional world, they look at LinkedIn, and it's gotten to be. I'm hearing from people anyway that they're more there now. It's gotten quite popular, like Facebook, but a lot of people dropped off of Facebook in 2018, and some of the people that I've interviewed lately say they want that just for their family and friends. So, but I do put up our show on my Facebooks. So I feel like for me and Janet, I do post those. Janet, you post the shows on social media, don't you?
I post the shows every time there's a show. So I'm busy.
Yeah, and Derek puts them up on my page too. He puts them up on my page, and he puts them on my timeline. Is that what you call it, Janet? I'm pretty much illiterate when it comes to
timeline.
Yeah, he puts it up there.
Okay, hold on 1 second. I'm gonna go on mute for a second. You guys carry the conversation. Hold on. I gotta take care of something real quick here. So you guys keep talking. I'm gonna go on mute. Okay. Keep talking.
Okay.
Well, do you make guided meditations? Is this your guided meditation? Did you do this, or is it someone else's on your page?
Okay. No, I have like 4 of them published back in the back in 2012, 2013. 2 or 3 of them are in English and one's in Portuguese. And the best one's in Portuguese, I think. So it has a lot of sound because I'm a sound expert, and I read sound and I read energies. So that's how I do it. And then I have, in my place, I have a little recording studio. So I make personalized MP3s. You used to call them CDs. And some people are still buying my CDs. Derek said the other day on Amazon, which, CDs they don't really listen to. Everything's made into an MP3. And then MP3s are available, too, if somebody just wants to get an MP3. And then that's more like just for the overall, it's called I Am Cosmic, and in Portuguese, Eu Sou Cósmica. And so then, the others I do when I have a student, mostly I'm teaching now more than anything. and all the synchronicities we're working on, and I see how all of these students have come in through synchronistic energies. It's amazing. And then I'll make MP3s or part of their lesson. And I actually have homework for them that I give, and we do a lot of things through creative artistry and the sound, and but their biggest thing is simple, and that's why I like the two little girls on this video talking about and one little girl says, and they don't trust themselves. And it's so cute. And she said, really? They don't trust themselves. And that's the whole thing, is the trust of the self. Because when we leave this play, we become the observer, and we look and do the inventory. And if you're Catholic, it's called purgatory, the inventory. And then you look, and there's no feeling. It's an observation of the incidents and how you did and what you came in to learn that you didn't neutralize before, and how you come together. And then that's how the observer takes over. And a lot of people, of course, we strive to leave these glitches behind. But in order to do that, we have to be willing to go into the emotional doors. And the mass populace in the world have not wanted to do that. They come from their head, not their heart. And so that's why the likeness of their energy that they put out can create the likeness of the environment where we are. And I think in every turn of the century or every stage of life, like when the plagues were going on in the Middle Ages and the Dark Ages, and now here, we needed a transition because the systems here on 3D weren't working anymore. They were falling apart. And so I've seen a lot of people wake up and awaken and ask questions through fear or sadness. And I always say, okay, if you're mad, turn the mad to sad, and be as intense as you can, and then feel, because fear is also a strong motivator. It can be negative, it can be positive. And then, of course, love and unconditional love comes from that. But the mad and the anger is always a block that stops. And usually the people are coming from the head or processing in their head. So, yeah. I have if you go into my timeline, there's another real good video that I posted. He's a neurosurgeon, Teresa. His name is Eben Alexander, and he's a Harvard graduate, and he had a death experience. He was in a coma for 9 days or something like that. And he was very conventional, even agnostic. And then when he came out, his whole life changed. So he's helping the medical field wake up into the higher dimensional realms beyond the 3D. And he's doing a great job. I think that's probably the best video I've ever seen. And it's an hour and a half long, so you have to think I'm going to watch a movie. And he's great. And he's tied to the Theosophical Society, and he's now, he opened up to the higher consciousness, to God, and everything. So he's wonderful.
I've watched his videos because I've had near-death experiences, and me being a contactee too. So I followed his stuff on YouTube.
Don't you think he's good?
So I like his story. Yes, I think he's a great speaker.
Yeah, he
is.
And
I like the way that he put Proof of Heaven. That's his book, Proof of Heaven.
Yeah, he's really natural. He's real, and he's real intense. And I think that's necessary. He has the force. And you've got the force, too. I'd like to hear about your stuff. We didn't finish them before the last time about your Roswell stuff and all of that, if you can. If you can't, I understand, because I know there's some things you probably can't talk about.
So I'm back.
Well,
so yeah,
it's
I'd like
just
to
a
hear
matter
your Roswell stuff.
Okay.
I'm back. So
well,
I just want to let you know I'm back.
What
so.
part? Well, Janet, you know my stories, but
No,
where do you want me to start?
Just start
Well,
with the Roswell story. You can go back in time. Okay, let me ask you then, since I've heard the story a bunch of times and I understand a lot about it, but I don't know it all. But TJ,
okay,
and I'm just going to say it, TJ realized that she was Gray, that was part of the team that delivered the two Roswell craft in the Roswell crash in 1947, the first week of July. And then we pieced this together with Lawrence Spencer, who wrote a book called Alien Interview. So we found Lawrence Spencer after, and this is recorded on one of our shows, where TJ was relaying that she was one of the two Greys. Tom was one of the Greys, and he didn't survive. But when you guys die, you're back up on the ship, right?
I guess I should explain.
Well, let me
Can
ask
you hear me?
Okay, I'll say. Well, I didn't know if you heard me. So when you were the Gray, and I know this is hard to say, but you told me years ago, and I have it recorded, and it flew out of your mouth like great ease, like it was just a memory, and then it seems like it's difficult talking about now. So I have it recorded, but it's like, so Errol the Gray got taken into the facility after the crash, and she was interviewed by this nurse, and Lawrence Spencer gave the nurse a pseudonym, but the nurse was interviewing the Gray alien, and they have pages and pages of documentation. So everything was written down, and then the nurse took it with her and moved to Ireland, and she contacted Lawrence Spencer because of his other books, and she said, I'm dying soon. I want to pass this on to you. And so Lawrence Spencer got these books, and he just basically published it verbatim. And what happened when you read the book, and there's a series of videos, it's called Alien Interview. It was on YouTube a few years back when we were focused on this part. And Errol the Gray said that, first of all, nobody killed her. She said, that was my doll baby. It was an avatar. So we have the concept of avatars back in the 40s. And she was like the lead Gray, and she was explaining how existence works. So they have a business, kind of like a business, where they provide life forms for people that are colonizing new planets, and they want to introduce, animals and bees and birds and stuff like that. And so, once you introduce a life form, it will alter, have microevolution to adapt to the climate. So we have an original species, and then it gets acclimated and changes. So the main thing she conveyed was that this is a prison planet, and that 1,000 of her Greys, we'll call them Greys for the lack of another word, got trapped in, I guess it was Tibet. They were the Dopas, and they got killed. And so those 1,000 Gray souls are trapped in the recycle birth, life, death, reincarnation on Earth. And so the reason they're interested in human beings and they want us to evolve, and that's why they delivered the ship, so they can help. We're supposed to help them free their souls, and they've done extensive work. And part of them, they got us out of the Dark Ages. We really would still be trapped in the Dark Ages, but
I can feel all that as you're talking about it.
Yeah, and so they were able to break through on that. But they said, if we could get these intelligent beings to work alongside of us, we could probably break this. It is a matrix, and free all of our species. Everybody's trapped in this system.
Right.
Okay. Back to other view.
Well, I don't know that. Can you hear me?
I can feel, Teresa, I can feel your energy very sensitive about this. As she was telling about it, you were maybe having some kind of flashbacks, because as we're talking, I have this other dimension that just kind of floats through like I'm watching a film in ethereal ether type form as we're talking. So I can feel all this.
Well, can you hear me?
Yeah,
Am I coming through?
Well. Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't think you could, for some reason. Well, it's interesting to hear Janet talk about that, because what happened is I came on one of her radio shows and it struck a chord, and she kept asking questions like I knew what I was talking about, and I just blurted out because I was there, and I was like, oh, my God, now I've done it, because here's what happened. I died as a child. I had a walk-in encounter, and when I was sleeping, I went up on a ship at about 2 to 4. It's sort of standard in the business. We have certain ages we check in with extraterrestrial, higher source, or self, or angelic realm. It's called all kind of things. But then I was okay with that, and I wrote about it in UFO Digest. So, but then I died again. I died again, or came and went, however you want to say it. But this time I was in the 2nd grade. This is how I put the story together. These are the bumps in the road. But I died again with hepatitis. So I was in St. Francis Hospital, and I saw angels in the top of the corner. So in my little mind, I was trying to compare being in a big cloud with people, and they were said, when I was younger, that I had to go back down to the, I woke up in a field that time. This time I'm seeing angels at the top of the hospital room when they took all my blood out and tried to clean it because I had hepatitis, and they didn't know how I got it. But when they did that, it made me leave my body, and they told me no, go back in my body, but I didn't go to heaven or to a spacecraft. I just stayed and sat above my body and saw 2 angels. So that was, they told me I was going to do wonderful things and all this. So I went the next year. I had to get better, but I willed myself to White Sands. And that was where my uncles worked at Los Alamos. And one uncle took my grandmother and me. And it was very interesting. I got to go into Carlsbad Caverns underground. And then over there, I did get to see my family again, because we were in the White Sand Dunes, and they put my cousin to sleep, a little 10-year-old boy and a 13-year-old girl. And they were the ones that told me, look, a flying saucer, as it came over, and it went down in a little gully between the White Sand Dunes. And they went to sleep, and I got to go down. So that was that was the first time I'd been on the second time I'd been on a spacecraft, or what someone might call another dimension, or how they can come and go. But then after that, I just went on, and I had extrasensory perception in my life. But I never put together the story that Janet told until way, way later. I'd already been writing for UFO Digest, and I was already sort of out, I guess, when I was awakened through the experiences of having life after death, or out-of-body or near-death experiences. But when I died again, I guess you'd say the third time, or bump in the road, was I had my 4th child, the one that just passed, and she came in knowing she was extraterrestrial, and I think we talked about that on the first part of this session, or oral book. And so she came in, and she died in my stomach, and then I looked at my mother, and the heartbeat stopped, and that's when they took me to, I said, am I going to die? And the doctor finally got there, because early in the morning, and he looked in my eyes, but he got right up to my eyes because I was already sort of out of it. I guess I'd like 60/40 was my blood pressure, but I was, dying. So I remember looking right in his eyes, and I could barely hear myself talk. And I said, doctor, am I going to die? And he said, not if I can help it. And that's when they raced me through the lights overhead and pushed the doors open, and it was real cold in the operating room. And the anesthesiologist, they had me sign a piece of paper because they were going to tie my tubes off so I couldn't have any more babies. It was already prearranged because I had 4 by the time I was 20, I don't know how old I was in 74, 22 or 3, because I was born 12/26/51. Anyway, it was a great. So I couldn't sign because I was already too low in my body, or too, I couldn't move my arm. I remember the board and me trying to say I can't, but they pushed me on the over on the where they put your feet up in the stirrups, and he was telling them to hurry up and give me the so he could, cut the baby out, because the baby had already flatlined, and then I was right behind him. And he said, I can't. She is 60/40 and dropping. She's not going to make it. So, I was pretty much gone. So he cut my stomach open without anything and pulled the baby out, which she was blue and had the cord around her neck. And I went up overhead, but I remember a nurse screaming. I think because she knew I wasn't dead yet, and he just cut me open right in front of her and pulled the baby out real quick, because they were, the baby was already dead in the room where we were waiting to go into the operating room, wherever they do that with nurses.
So they didn't do any anesthesia?
Oh, no, nothing. No, they just ripped me open and took the baby, but I was already on top of my body watching it. I'd already come out the top head chakra. So I was already watching from over my head, but I could still hear and see. So I remember watching them and hearing and I stayed in the room. I didn't know I was dead, but stayed in the room watching, sort of like Ghost. You come out, but you're still involved in what's going on. So, but I was watching them clean the baby up, and she wouldn't breathe, and they took that snorkel and patted her. A nurse there was a couple of nurses in there, but they took her over and was trying to get her to breathe. I kept saying, breathe, breathe. I remember saying that, or in my head with ESP, because I don't believe your mind and your brain is your essence or your soul. So, but I was talking, and I was saying, breathe, breathe. And then they finally got her to cry, and I stayed long enough for them to put the her ink pad on a piece of paper. And because I saw them prick and take blood out of her heel, and I saw them ink pad on a piece of paper her foot. I guess that's for the little hospital thing. But they went ahead and cleaned her up, and then the nurse looked at the clock. And when she looked at that clock, I zoomed off. So I went zooming like on a white escalator. Zoom, I went up and left this area, and no ship picked me up, but I went through several layers, or the stars, and through the galaxy, and on up and through the universe. And I say several universes because I was able to go up and go through, I would say about five levels, but I don't know for sure. I was you just travel. But that's when I talked to people, and I heard voices, and it wasn't on the hospital room. It was voices where I was going, but I had just about reached my destination when I could hear them. So I said, wait, I want to go back. And all of a sudden, it was like this escalator stopped, or whatever capsule, or whatever I was in as a essence. And the escalator slowed down. I call it escalator because of the way it was going. It wasn't, of course, through the universe. It was some kind of, however we travel, light years or light speed. But it was two people talking. I would think it was a man and a woman, or my guides, or God. I don't know, because I didn't go over where you see the pearly gates or the beautiful land, or I just was in limbo right before the next level. And they said two things, well, at least two things to me, because I've sort of forgotten them over time. But I remember one of them was, I said, nobody would say anything. So I said, well, what will happen to my children? And so the first thing they said was, let's see, what will happen? They said, nothing. And then they said, I said, well, I want to go back somehow with them, just talking ESP. And they said, well, all children would be your children. And they said, you'll experience more pain than you've ever experienced before, but it's talking with your mind. And I said, I could see this opening portal of gold and hear people, but I didn't quite get there. So it seemed like forever, but it was just a few seconds. And I guess they talked to each other without me hearing it because I didn't hear the decision. But then all of a sudden that feeling of going like up through space turned and brought me right back down. And then I came all the way back, shoom through the different levels. And I know when I was going up that the stars, the one thing I remembered was all this Akashic field energy, all this knowledge came into me. It was amazing, the most amazing thing I'd ever felt going through the stars. But coming down, I don't remember that, of going back through. But I remember hitting my body and coming up off the gurney. So I hit back with so much force that it banged my soul back into my body. So I came back. Of course, I didn't have enough blood. There wasn't enough blood in the hospital because I'd lost just about, it was over 6. I don't know if we held 8 pints. I was only short 1.5 pints, and they didn't have enough O positive, however many I needed, 6 or 7. It was close to the entire, but I had just enough left, because they'd cut my stomach open, you can imagine, and all the blood, and then I'd already been hemorrhaging. That's I had placenta previa. So that's why the big hole in all the blood, I'd lost all the blood because I was hemorrhaging from I had fallen going in, I figured this out later, that I'd fallen going in to teach baton on a wet cement at the Houstons when I was teaching children because I had 3 girls and, expecting the 4th one. So I'd fallen on my butt one day going in. So it started a slow, tiny pin, and I guess it just finally burst open. So that's why I died. But anyway, I came back, and that made me understand a lot about past lives. They started coming in, but I didn't know how to deal with it. So it took me a while to learn to walk and talk again, about 3 months. But I stayed in ICU. My mom said I would raise up, and I remember dying and coming back where they used the paddles 2 or 3 times to keep me in my body because they were trying to get blood in me. So I stayed in there so long that it was 2.5 weeks before Mother said, "Don't you want to see your baby?" But my stepfather came to ICU, and they couldn't get me to talk or to do anything because I was so gone from no blood. So I never got to see the baby till they took me home, and I could barely walk. It was either 2 months. I didn't get to bond with the baby, with Gigi. So she was born with a tail. I remember they clipped her tail off, and that's sort of why they clipped her tail off. But when she died, she talked to me about it and figured that was part of their alien DNA because that was the part they couldn't get out of her tailbone, or where they'd clipped was the part in the alien DNA at Moffitt Cancer Hospital. They'd cleaned her blood up, at this 40s, just recently in 2018 when she was rebirthed in May of 2017.
How do they do
take
that?
all your
Because
blood?
Some other
clean
people,
it?
I think I told y'all about Terry Ling being interviewed on George Nuri with Cheryl Jones about that. I haven't taken the time to listen to it, but they
what's our
it
topic?
said it had been the first scientific break of finding the DNA for the ET.
Oh, okay.
That I don't know what the topic was. I guess
they read it. They read. Yeah, go ahead.
They have to look.
They read it.
They read for something. That they have to look for something in the blood. And so I don't know.
It's a whole big process.
Alien DNA.
Do you guys know what part of the blood?
Well, yeah,
I'm not a geneticist.
They study it.
Right, but there's some trigger.
They pull it out.
There's some kind of protein in there, I think, that designates some of that stuff. I don't know.
Well, they have T cells. There's markers.
Uh-huh.
They can read every bit of it, of your DNA, of course. You know how that is. And they have like 4 numbers and all that in the strands. But they can read all that.
Yeah.
You guys are talking.
Well, she was in a cancer.
I think some
you guys
people,
are doing a lot of crosstalk. Can you try not to crosstalk so much?
Yeah.
Okay, so
I think
slow
some
down
of
and breathe.
I think some of the doctors that I've talked to in the past call it trash in the blood. And that's just, it means they don't know, probably. So it's interesting. I don't know that they could tell how to tell that. I want to know, though.
Well, you've heard the DNA, and we have 23 chromosomes, well, 46,
sure.
23 and 23. So they break all that down, and with my daughter, what they did is they would gave her a plasma bag, basically, but she wasn't making enough blood because she had benzene poisoning. She'd acquired that from her painting job, so chemicals and stuff in the ocean, too. So they had to... She got too much benzene in her blood, and it stopped making white cells and red cells. People, we don't know because we don't even think about it, but once you go through this stage of working with cancer people or people that get it, you learn a lot. And it was that last one hidden thing after they cleaned her all up. We thought what they would call like remission, but she had already had chemotherapy. She was getting shots in her stomach, and then she finally got approved for a trial, and that's when we went to Tampa, and they call it rebirth, and she actually gets they don't know if she's going to live through it, and a lot of her friends they do for a while, but they were all dead within 2 years. And she went and saw a couple of them.
Yeah.
The people that I lived with them, the people going through it. It's a big, huge process, and it's a totally different lifestyle. I lost weight anyway, but
do the doctors own
it's really sad.
Do the doctors own and call it a different DNA structure? If you have
they can have all that. Well, you have to be typed, but not only do you have to be typed, then they break your cells down, look at the T cells.
I know that.
They're so complicated.
I just wondered if the doctors admitted it. Wow.
Yes, that's why they called me in to a meeting. They wanted to know about who all I worked for in the government, and had other doctors come in from other countries. Oh, yeah, it's really a big deal. They had... the Nordics, the women, some of the women that were Nordics worked there from Norway, and we got to know. It becomes one big family. It's a huge industry, and it's a huge, very, you have to be cleared. There's millions of dollars that go in it. She was taking one pill that was like $750,000 or something. I mean, it's lots and lots of money, lots of people, very good people.
You can't. Physicians will admit that.
Well, they all work together. Well, they were working.
Was it military?
And this is why they never cure it, because it's a billion-dollar industry. They have no incentive to ever find the cures for these diseases, and we need to somehow as a society, if we want to go from a level 0 to a level 1 society in the Kardashev scale, is that we have to stop monetizing energy and and any kind of health and wellness medical stuff, because
it's all about money.
It's just barbaric to monetize. There's no value of a person except for the money they can bill on insurance.
That's exactly
and then somebody gets rich.
That's right.
So this is just criminal what they did to you, and they could have cured your daughter. But if they cure one, they've got to cure them all. And if they start curing it, then they're out of business.
Then they don't get the money.
Right. It's all about money.
It is. That's really
well, at
a big
the last
story.
It was. They were so compassionate in the beginning, and at the end, when they know that, after they can't cure you, then they just sort of. It's sad to watch the video at the last, because her savior. I won't mention names because it's not fair, but I should. But he was very famous, and he did a lot of TV and all that, but they're very compassionate. His father even died from the same thing my daughter did, and that's why he got into the study of that. But at the last, he just told her what it was going to be like, and that video is on YouTube too. In the beginning when she's positive, and people tracked her on Facebook, and they were her friends on Facebook. And at the end, she was just another number, and they just sit her down and tell her, and they were even cutting out her only hope for what little bit of cleanup to keep her alive at the end. But finally, she hemorrhaged in her brain here at the house, and Janet was on the phone when she was leaving the body, but she hung around in her body. She didn't want to leave, and I had to watch her, her stomach go in and out. It was so sad because they only had a window, but since she was already so deep with the cancer and gone through the trial, and they did all they could, they had told her that she'd bleed out her eyes, and she did. Oh, no, we didn't get that far because, no, it was, she was young, and at the end, she was here at the house where she wanted to be, and we had a hospice come in right at the last because she could still walk and talk like everybody. She was perfectly fine walking around talking. The only thing is that when you're going through all the bad stuff they do to help her, it eats up all the lining in your mouth and on your lips and all the way down through your intestines. It literally eats you up from the end. You have to regrow. It's quite a long process, the trial, and in killing, it kills you and you start over again. Now, see, I didn't go through all that when I died because I didn't have the cancer or the chemicals they put in me, so I had a clean break. She had a terrible thing, but she was trying to prolong her life with cancer, right? But she was hoping to beat it. I could tell you stuff that extraterrestrial parts of me that Janet talked about in the beginning is the fact that those little gray, the reason I could do it was like remote viewing in this life. But see, the part you don't know is Tom and I were sent out. We found each other like Mr. and Mrs. Smith over in Africa. So we worked on some international, we were both investigators, but we were both in military too. So he was Army and I was Navy, but I crossed over into joint chiefs of staff, so to speak, joint. And so I was trained in our Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines.
Let me explain to our listeners what you mean by Mr. and Mrs. Smith, because I had this interview with TJ and Tom on my show, and they were each other's assignment. If it came to it, Tom would have killed TJ. And I said to on the show, I said, where did you guys first meet? And Tom says, I saw TJ at the end of in my scope. And we went, what? Anyway, she had been sent on a mission to South Africa. And there was a guy, she didn't know what was going on. They had her, they used TJ like eye candy for a while there. She was tall and gorgeous, right? So they flew her down to South Africa, and she didn't know where she's going. It's always a need-to-know basis, and it's a fancy house over
largest country club in the world.
The world, right?
Largest country club.
If I say that, let me just say, you can correct me if I'm wrong. But anyway, there was some guy she had to go pin a flower. I forget if it was a carnation or a rose, but they said, it's like she was the hostess. Here, go pin this flower on him. Welcome. So she pins his flower on his lapel and walks away, and he goes, thump, hits the ground, thump, dead. So the assassin on the other end was Tom, TJ's future husband. And so TJ
sounds
put
so
the
weird
flower
having you
and
say it.
Walked away, and he died. And
they didn't kill him. They didn't kill him while I wasn't there. I'd already walked back into the building, and they rushed me off. So I wanted to go back and see what was going on. I said I was.
See, I made it.
I didn't know what was going on.
See, in my movie, I made it that you walked away and you heard the stud. See, because that's what you would do in Hollywood, right? I just Hollywoodized your scene. So you walked away, you didn't know what it was, but I had you. Okay, wait, you can't leave the whole room. You gotta hear the stud and turn around and go, whoa, shocked.
Well, I imagine Hollywood would like your book better than my book, because mine's dry.
Oh, they certainly would.
Well, mine's not so pretty like you do, but.
Yeah.
Yours is. I like listening to yours.
So when you heard about it, how did you know that this happened?
Oh, I didn't hear about it.
Dead?
I didn't hear.
You never heard about it.
I learned about it from Tom. No, I was rushed out of there and rushed off into another existence. Well, I knew something because a viscount they rushed me off to England. This is high spice stuff. This is stuff that happened before the Bush-Iraq War.
Right. So this was under Reagan
James Bond stuff.
Was this your life, or was this in this life? Was this in your life? In this life? In this life?
Yeah, this was in this life. She was the. But okay, so you didn't know that you were being used to, they mark people and assassins out there in the. So Tom has an answer.
I didn't join.
Right. Well, you thought you were.
Wait, let me fill this in. I was an investigator, Karen, before I was in the. I joined the government May 10th, 1967, while my husband worked for NASA. Okay, and I was working as ambassador of goodwill for the city of Houston, but Yvonne McCutcheons recruited me. I was in the paper with our graduating high school class, so I was a real pretty and a girl with a bunch of other pretty girls. So the government recruited us, and it turned out that Yvonne McCutcheons was a recruiter for women into the government intelligence community.
Oh my gosh, I've heard this
before. And I didn't know.
Yeah.
I didn't know that then. I mean, I knew that the government, and they wanted me to go work for the government, and, it was a big thing to my parents, but I was already recruited out of a James Bond movie with my husband, and we were taken off to the side of a James Bond movie. So I know now because I started piecing it together 50 years later.
Let me fill in this.
Yeah, they took me out
you were watching
everybody.
A James Bond movie. You were
James Bond
watching a James Bond movie with her boyfriend, which was your future husband.
Wow.
And then they corralled her outside, and what did they say? Let's slow this down because I'm unpacking.
There was men in black and
And what did they say to you?
A cigarette.
What did they say to you when they got?
They asked me if they asked us if we liked the movie because we were in shock because everybody was leaving and going back out Windsor out the front, and they herded us out the side, corralled us, and took us out the side door where you open it up and there's cement and 4 or 5 or maybe 6 cement steps down with a bar. So, they herd us out, and there's like 1 or 2 men behind me and my boyfriend standing on the steps, and then the man in black that smoked, it was like out of X-Files. He looked like that, and he had a cigarette. And so he's the one at the bottom of the stairs looking up. And so we're caught. We're not going anywhere, but we're in shock. We're just 2 teenagers. So, they said, well, how'd you like the movie? And we didn't, we don't know what to say. We just watched a movie and they want to know what we're thinking. And, we feel like we're in a movie, Men in Black, Of course, we didn't know what Men in Black meant. But, back then. So, we both, Steve said first and talked to the guy and said, yeah, that's good and all that. And so he said, well, how would you like to do that kind of work? And my husband was asking a question, and then he looked at me. He said, no, not you, her. And because, I guess they already had plans for him to work at NASA or something. I don't know how that goes. But they looked at me, and I said, me? And they said, yeah, what did you think? How would you like to do that kind of work? So anyway, he went to work for NASA, and I just said, sure, I guess. I don't know. So my husband and I, they said, well, they'd be back in touch, and they just cued us in on it and asked, what we'd think about it. And they left. They didn't keep us there or nothing. They let us go down the stairs, and we went off talking about it in the car. Like, they just said, don't mention it to anybody, or anybody. We'll be back in touch. But, don't mention talking to us. But we didn't know who we were talking to, and they didn't tell us who we were talking to. So how are you going to talk about it? But anyway, I'm sure I mentioned it to my parents that, somebody stopped us. But I have to pull the whole thing together, and it's so deep and complicated, the life that I've lived. Oh, yeah, I wound up working for the government I'd already signed all the government paperwork. Oh, I don't know. You mean, did I ever see them? I saw a bunch of men when I went to Washington to Langley, and I did the polygraph and retina scan. On my second polygraph, they brought in men about 5 or 10 men in black suits and stood them in front of me during the polygraph and told me not to forget them. I said, because they'd be back in touch within 10 years. And I said, 10 years, I'll be dead within. Because back when I was in my 30s, I thought 10 was, this was later on in life. Yeah. After from high school, see, remember I went to Africa. I come back from Africa, and these huge, tall giants, had to be extraterrestrials, but anyway, they were in Navy uniforms. They took me down to the goat locker, and I remember taking a treasury test. I took the D-Lab language aptitude battery test. I took all these tests.
What's a goat locker?
In the Navy, a goat locker, I don't know what a goat locker is, but that's what they called it. It's a room. Well, it was in the Houston, it's like a government Navy office, and I guess, I don't know what they call it. They took me in the goat locker. I don't know what that means. That's what they said they did. They took me in.
Was this at an Air Force base?
It was at MEPS. No, it was in one of those government buildings where they have recruit people. MEPS, military enlisted something. But they took me down, and then I had to take all these tests. And they took me. I had just come in from Africa, well, from England. I came in from England,
what
UK.
What were you doing there?
When they, I met with a Viscount. I met with some royal people. I stayed and visited royalty. I guess to meet the Queen. I don't know.
Was this from
I was in Britain.
Military? Was this from the military?
I did a bunch of work. No, I had. You keep saying military, and I know why because.
TJ.
Okay.
TJ.
What?
One at a time. You guys are talking over each other, and then I get comments. You're talking over each other, so you need to do one at a time, okay? So pause after you talk, and because there's a delay. They had an old article about how everything's delayed on the internet, especially now since everybody's home. So you got to slow down and not talk over each other. So you got to yield. So let's ask a question and count 1, 2, then respond and count 1, 2. Okay, let's try that. Because there's too much crosstalk, okay?
I'll try.
So, the question was...
All right. Well...
Okay. Was...
Okay.
And just wait till you get the answer to the question. And so then I'll pass it to Karen. But I think Karen's asking, what were you doing? And I'm asking, what were you doing in England? You know, you said you're talking to royalty. Slow that down.
I was...
And go ahead now.
Okay. I wasn't in uniform yet. I haven't joined the army. This is the secret. I was already in the government, but I wasn't trained to wear uniforms yet. So they said I was a rehire 4x10 after I came back from the UK. So while I was in the UK, I met with...
They transported you to the UK. That was to begin your...
first class.
Wow. And
first
Africa
class.
also?
Yeah.
That's
yeah, I flew first class.
That's amazing.
Back when I went to Africa, you had to have a lot of money. Not everybody could go to Africa. Mm-hmm. So, but when I went to the UK, I remember I had to meet with Lloyd's of London. I met with them, and I met with MI6 division, that worked for the Queen's Security. And Tom did too, by the way. The same people that I met, Tom met. But he worked after the French connection during the World War II. They had an underground railroad and an underground intelligence community. So they all worked with the CIA in our country, in America. So that was all the people. And see, the government and CIA all work with the airports and the Army and the military, all the military bases. So I got trained in all this.
Did you ever figure out why?
I got trained.
TJ, did you ever figure out why you were in England? It made no sense to you. You're just being led around and talking to a bunch of royals and head monkey bucks. You never got what that was about. Is that what you're saying?
I went
when you're in England.
I met with a lot of people in England. I met with people in record divisions. I met with genealogy people. I met, I don't know, just important people. I remember the Viscount because he was real tall and he picked up.
But what were they talking about?
They all wanted to know.
No, what?
I don't know. They were nice to me. I don't know. They were happy. They talked like.
Come on, TJ.
I don't know what it was all about. There was training. I went to an embassy.
Did you know why you were going over there? Did you want to know why?
I was an investigator. I just know I was an investigator, and I was told to find the things out.
What were you investigating?
So,
what were you trying to
find out? I was like
Whoopi
Goldberg. You like to do movies. It was Jumpin' Jack Flash. It was a Jumpin' Jack Flash story. You know how she was helping a guy in the. You don't know Jumpin' Jack Flash with Whoopi Goldberg? It was just like that.
No, I didn't see
It's
that.
like all right. Well, anyway, I went around and I did whatever I was supposed to do. I met important people. They were covering for me, I guess. They all like spy business. Tom got knighted when he went. I didn't get knighted. He danced with the queen, and he met Fergie. Came and jumped in bed with him in the castle, the redhead. But with me, I met the Viscount. I met a tall, good-looking man. I guess he worked for the Queen or something. I was up to that time. I didn't have the intelligence.
What did he say?
He just talked to me about family, and he asked me about people that I knew back then. They were just visiting like they were relatives or something. I don't know. I know they paid for me to stay at the 5 Seasons or 4 Seasons or whatever. They picked up the bill, and it was just a bunch of diplomats.
Did you think they were programming you, maybe?
Programming. I didn't even know what that meant until I went to the CIA. The CIA, the guys that introduced me. What do you mean?
It seems like they were conditioning you for your trust in them.
Probably, yeah, because they were all. I was going to the different departments of the UK, but I was an American. And then I wound up going in and out of countries that way. But people, what it is like when they come to my country, I learned all this later, but when they come to my country, I would be assigned to, or they'd be assigned to me, like at the conventions you go to, like the big conventions where they have trade industry from all countries. You get signed a diplomatic attaché. So I would be the diplomatic attaché, but the government would pick up all the bills for the food and the restaurants for all these diplomats. So it's like being a courier intelligence officer / I wasn't in the military yet, at least that I know of, because what happened is I had an FPO New York, Fleet Post Office, but I didn't get into a uniform until I met J. Allen Hynek. Okay, they flew me from when I was down in that goat locker and they were deciding what I was doing, and some men showed up in suits. They were all fighting for me for, it seemed like, was I going to work for the Treasury? Was I going to work for the intelligence agency? Was I going to work for NSA? Was I going to work for the Navy? And somehow the Navy won out, but then the intelligence agency buys my contract later when I go to Washington. So I didn't know you could buy contracts, but anyway, so to make a long story short, from going to UK, I came back. The big tall men got me, took me to the goat locker. They all decide what I'm going to do. Then the men in black come pick me up in a black car. I go by the rich, famous attorney I was working for, turn in my fancy sports car because I was living like Magnum PI, which I meet Tom Selleck in Hawaii, which is really funny because he's living down. He said I was the one living the life that he was portraying on television. Tom Selleck said that. It was true. Goodness. We had the same bodyguards. Yeah, we had the same bodyguard at that time. But it's very complicated. People don't get to live this kind of stuff. But I think the government had this set up for the spy industry, and they trained people, and then a lot of mine was training, and the other half was meeting people, and some of it was courier work. Me and my husband would carry documents or jewelry, or he carried something in a sock once, or microfiche, and we wouldn't even know we were carrying things. You know, it was really fun, but it was scary business. So that's why it was Mr. and Mrs. Smith.
Man,
but I don't get put into a uniform till I I wanted to wear a uniform, so they had a big. I made things hard because I wanted to go to boot camp again, and that's when I go to boot camp. And the lady that had me through the first boot camp I went to said, "My God, what did they do to you?" Because I wound up having to go in my suit that had come in from the first class plane in UK in a suit. I was a woman in a suit, and I had a full quill ostrich briefcase from Africa that one of the men bought for me. It was a gift to me for the kind of, I don't know why, but he did. They let me bring it in. He had to pay duty or something on it, which he did. But I was shipped to Orlando down here where I live in Florida now, but I'm in the Panhandle. And I went there, and then one of the girl that trained me, she knew me, and she made me platoon, and I had to call cadence for him. But she showed me outside a picture that I had done. And she said, "You don't remember," and it was my artwork, and I recognized it. But she says, "You can't," she took me out, after a few weeks in boot camp, because you go 6 or 8 weeks, I forgot now, it's in K071, I think. She says, "What did they do to you?" But she remembered me coming through in like 1980 or 81. And then I lost time between 81 and 84 when I showed back up in Houston. And then at that time is when I joined 42985 was my second 4x10 enlistment, 42985, which was leap year. So I remember it because people would tell me I was lying because February only has 28 days. So, people can make a liar out of anybody, but it happened to be 42985 because when they had to renew my contract in Hawaii, an 8-year contract, it was actually, they told me, our Secret Service, our NIS told me they could actually hold me accountable for 4 times 32 years. But when I got from Hawaii to Texas in 94, where I wound up meeting my husband in Dallas, where you are, I haven't met him yet. What Janet was telling you about him in Africa, she knows that. But see, I hadn't met him yet. So I go to Fort Hood and I sign a new contract, and I have to take another defense language aptitude battery and another, what do they call that, entry level test, ASVAB. Is that what it's called? ASVAB. But I took it, and I was really disappointed because the first one in Houston, I made like a 97 or something, real high. I was the highest because it was me plus about 20 or 30 people took it, and I made the highest grade. I was real smart then. But remember, I died and got a lot of information from the Akashic field, right? I went and made straight A's at college for a little while there. But when I came back, it's like I only made a 67 or 76 or something real low. But they said, yeah, but between the time you took it in 84 and this is 94, it's 10 years later, and you don't even know a lot of the information that changed. But they said you still have over a high level above college. Maybe it was 87 I made then or 78, but it was less than I made, and I was disappointed. But they gave me another contract to sign, but I don't know who got it. I don't know if the Army, but a man in a Navy uniform had me fill it out. So I don't know if I'm still under contract or not, but I do know that they sent some intelligence agency people to close out my paperwork in the Navy because I worked with the engineering people in the embassies when I got to do what I wanted to do. They put me in Navy NAVPAC FAC-ENGCOM, Pacific Navy Facility Engineering Command, because they worked with all the embassies. And then that's when I started learning about Hangar 18 and all the UFO stuff. But I hadn't got assigned to that yet, but they were briefing me on that stuff. And then I got to do classified and handle personnel information security, debrief the Navy and people that came on the base. I got to go on submarines and those carriers and all kind of stuff that pulled into Hawaii. And so that was a training into the classified material. Yeah. But then after I leave that and go to Fort Hood, and J. Allen Hynek was the one that he flew on that plane with me. there was German people and Air Force people, just like in, I guess, the TV show that I haven't got to watch yet, but people have told me, and I've seen like one or two of them. But he flew with me on a plane from Fort Hood, or from Killeen into Chicago somehow. I think we had to change somewhere. But he's the one that saw me reading Ruth Montgomery book and Aliens Among Us. So that's when I think my life gets interesting, because after I go and get to wear the Navy uniform, I wore Air Force first in Lowry Air Force Base in Colorado. Then I get to wear the Navy uniform and go through hospital corpsman and become a corpsman. Then they take me in the basement again and tell me and another girl and a guy that his father wrote President Reagan's speech stuff. They took us and said we would never get a DD-214. So we would never, ever get a DD-214. So I guess we were in some kind of special group.
DD-214 means. Explain what that is. What is a DD-214?
I don't know, because I never got one. But it's basically what people like to look at, a piece of paper.
Proving that you're in the military, right?
It's the paperwork you fill out. Apparently, I've seen them written, and I have one. They gave me one, but it was a fake one. It only had 5 months and 11 days on it for the training, they said, because they didn't want to have to pay me the rest of my life any benefits for the kind of work I did. So it's a way to get you in for training for less than 6 months on the books. But now Tom had got out at 13 years, but I spent on paper 8 years in uniform. But that would be called active duty and then reservist. But I also worked on the base in personnel and information security as a civil servant, as a GS status. But I worked because before I went in, I worked with the FBI, training FBI, and then I helped with train some Treasury people, tax people in Great Lakes. And I got my business information certificate, and then I learned to use weapons there. I got certified in Chicago. So it overlaces civilian wage grade. I learned wage grade. I drove a big truck, and I learned, I was a GS, I was a reservist, I was active duty, I was in all uniforms, I was in black ops, and training. I almost had to go south, Antarctica, but I didn't have to through the Air Force. But after I got out of this, Karen, and did all this training and spy business.
Let me ask you something.
Go ahead.
So when I was on Johnson Atoll, where I was civilian, and I working for the military, they did the rotation to Antarctica. You could go Antarctica, Greenland, Marshall Islands, Kwajalein, and Johnson Atoll. And these were all the people that had high-level clearance, and they would do the rotation. So I was talking to them because I had been cleared somehow. Now, I'm civilian. I have zero military background. And I'm over in a secret base. Right. There's a lot I don't know about why I got there, but when I got there, it was like, I'm cute, but not that cute, right? I was surrounded by all kinds of people paying a lot of special interest in me. But you said right there, you almost said, what the hell is in Antarctica? And all this stuff is now coming out.
It's just another base.
It's just a base.
Well, Tom worked there, and they trained people to live off planet, but they put them underground. And he said a lot of them went crazy because of the lighting and knowing that they don't have any something to do with sunlight, if I remember correctly.
Yeah,
and
you got
it was really terrible. I just only know what I can tell you that he experienced, because I didn't. Now, some of the friends of mine at the Larry Air Force Base did have to go. They were getting their winter gear and all that. It was spooky because we'd talk about it, in the cafeteria together. But I was in an Air Force uniform.
Right.
But I was waiting for my clearance, my top secret or SCI, because I had a German man came and said I had Royal 14. It was above top secret, special compartmental, and all that. It was royal. So that could have been why I was meeting with the royal people, and I don't know. And my husband and I knew it was above the president because they explained to us, like he was like level 4 or something, and we were already up at 14 by that, and it went up to like 33. I thought that was odd that it went up like the Masons. You know what I'm saying? The 33 degrees.
Oh,
that
yeah,
just could be a coincidence.
What it sounds
it
like.
Could be a coincidence.
Let's ask you another question, okay? Because we're all over the place. Do you want to ask her a question
no, I think what it sounds like to me.
Until the end of the question.
We didn't even get to the aliens yet.
Well,
I know.
Sounds like
we're unpacking this. Go ahead.
Yeah, it sounds like to me that you were innocent, you both were young, and they were razzle-dazzling you in all these places, and you had so much information coming in, and they had some way to release a lot of the information they didn't want you to hold on to. So that may be why you're confused a lot, and you remember some of it, and some of it, is not as clear as it used to be. When you were actually...
Yeah, and Tom and I... Yeah, we had both. Now, Karen, listen to this. When we met, we didn't know we knew each other. Well, he knew because he didn't know. He put it together because his handler from the CIA brought him the hardcover. Back in the 80s, we still had hardcover, cardboard files, with all the paperwork in it. We didn't have, well, we had computers, but we didn't keep everybody. But he knew then, that's when he knew that was me in the dress. That he realized I was the one that he had the scope on. So we didn't put all this together till way later. I mean, it was amazing. So he and I were both assigned to find out about extraterrestrials, but we didn't know it. And then when well, I think we were each other's target because I've heard somebody in the UFO community, I won't mention names, but back when Don Berliner, and do you know who Stanton Friedman is by chance? Are you in the UFO? You do?
Yeah.
All right.
Everybody knows him. I've never got to
Well, I didn't know
him,
because I don't know if... Yeah, well, I didn't either. I never met him that I know of, but he was in that
I met him a dozen
group.
times.
He was,
yeah.
So Janet knows him. And,
yeah, but let's go back to what was he? Oh, God, I can't.
I don't know where we were on the storyline. Well, ask Karen.
Yeah,
Karen, where were we in the storyline?
Well, it was about Antarctica.
And
then you were going around everywhere.
Yeah, we got to slow down.
And then what I was trying
to do one thing at a time. Mm-hmm.
What I'm picking up is that the reason you're confused and you're not clear and it doesn't flow clearly is because they did that.
Well, I had missing time because, see, I wound up doing alien stuff. Now, remember the last time you were on here, you wanted to know about Preston and me going to Long Island and working on Montauk. Remember?
Yeah, I remember. Yeah.
So
I was involved with that.
That blows me away. When I was 16, after the guys... Yeah, so somewhere in between that going to the movie and getting married, then in 68 or 69, I go with my husband, his father that worked at NASA, and his father worked for Grumman. Well, Grumman had a bunch of top secret stuff going on at Montauk, and they.
You said NASA in Clear Lake.
Yeah, NASA Clear Lake. Yeah, we lived out there. So, but his father, they moved to Long Island, and that's when I got taken to meet some. Well, I don't even know what I met, but I think it was the little gray beings because that's what I see. But it's like with Janet and that Lawrence Spencer she introduced me to and brought him on the radio. He became a friend of mine. He sent me his book autographed, and he's a very nice guy. He lives in Texas where you are. But I saw some of those little grays with their minds, but they were scared to death. So, Janet and I sort of assumed I must have been one because I had this remote viewing experience on her show before I ever knew about. She went and tracked that Lawrence Spencer down.
You forget.
I don't know how
you forget, TJ. TJ, you told me, and I will have to go get the show. It's back from 2012 or 2013. You said that you came down into the timeline and you actually delivered the crap, and you were the one that was. You said Tom was the one who got shot in the leg and then he died, and you were the one that were taken into the underground base and interrogated. Then years went by.
Well, I know the story too well from a first-hand.
No, you said that when after
I know the story.
Died, you went up on the ship.
I told you.
And that's what you said.
I told you the story before you found a guy with a book.
Right.
I told
and then
you the story and then I'd gone to Nickell and Dennis. It's all confused, Karen, because we need somebody to help separate all my storylines. Because it's all the same story, but you got to remember.
When you get triggered,
well, no, I mean I lived through it.
Okay, so stop.
Well, go ahead.
Let me say what I'm saying.
Okay.
Yeah, you always talk over me, so. And I'll find this if I can. I'll go back in time, and you actually said that it was you. So I don't know if you were hypnotized and recovering, because if I do a one-on-one with somebody, I tend to hypnotize them just because I'm a hypnotherapist, and I get people into a deep state, and then they start spilling their guts often. And I didn't know that's what I was doing, but I got called on that one time. Oh, right, because I'm a highly trained therapist, and I just get into like a Vulcan mind meld thing. So you start saying all this stuff about who I am and what
firsthand.
Firsthand. It was not, I saw this on Lawrence Spencer's whatever. No. Then you were shocked when we found it. And I go, and then you had a delay, and I said, TJ, Lawrence Spencer is talking about your story. You're the one that got taken to the underground facility. And then Lawrence Spencer's information has the dialogue because the nurse, they called her a nurse, recorded it all, made a copy of her stuff, and stole away with her and went to Ireland. And then she contacted Spencer when she was dying. And she somehow she mailed him or something. This is back when you could do stuff like that. And so then he decided to publish it. But Lawrence didn't know that you were Errol LeGray. I'm the one that pieced it together because I knew your story that you told me firsthand, like in a hypnotherapy session, and then I discovered, and I went, holy crap, look at this. That's your story, right?
That's great.
Yeah. I'm going to
well, that's the part that makes... I was missing time back then. You call it the 20 and back program. So Tom and I knew about going off 20 years and coming back, but we were only missing 15 seconds. We figured out between the two of us. See, it's real complicated, Karen. It's going to be hard to tell all this live through because
yeah, Robert and I have been through missing time. Yeah, absolutely. No, I know all that.
Yeah, but how did you know you're missing 15
we were missing.
Seconds? Wait a minute. How in the world? I would never know I was missing 15 seconds. So, but you missed
because
hours.
they told us.
You're missing 15 seconds. Okay,
because the council. The people that are like us that we work with off planet, we call them the CIA, but they're the CIA of the universe. They're the guardians of the galaxy. Because
so what
we were asking
tell you about missing 15 seconds.
Because
that when they
some things they don't.
20 and back, it's not exact science, so you're not exactly taking it the right second. You're returned 15 seconds later. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, we're gone a long time, but we're only missing 15 seconds or 14. The reason I could see, I've had to put this together, Karen, through listening to how my life worked and then Tom's story. And Tom and I had similar stories, but we scared each other. But while we were underground, we had to go through Fort something I've forgotten already. I've forgotten more than I can.
You found
it was Texas.
The pieces fixed together.
It was Mexico. Yeah, we had to go to the mountain, and we had to go under the mountain. But we would work with the. He would play cards with the guys that had the little grays and the bottles inside the mountain. They call it Dulce. They called it Dulce, but we weren't allowed to talk about anything then. But they took us for hours through the ground, like when I went to White Sands. So somehow that you go, and then they have welcome to this underground, and then they got bowling alley and cafeterias. So they have this off planet too, because we knew they were mining on the planet these, different, minerals and stuff. And see, the extraterrestrials, they look like us. The reason I knew they were because we weren't here. And so Tom and I would fight because we repelled each other because we didn't want to know the truth. I can't explain it. It took us 5 years before we ever got married. We were always fighting because we had ships we could talk to. We had people we could talk to. We'd have missing time. We'd be off planet. We'd be on planet. We'd go to sleep, and then it'd be like we were in another dimension. And you're supposed to try to study Solomon so you don't go crazy, and you learn magic because it's real, but it's interdimensional. And it's like they're studying your brain, and they're putting you in metal cases or Faraday cages, and you're doing ESP, and they're having you talk to aliens, and you're going to Area 51, and he and I would go out on of course, Janet Airlines. I put that as a clue into days. Janet, I put that in my thing. I didn't know we were going to discuss this, but Janet Airlines, one of the CIA
Airlines. Why
it was the wife or girlfriend.
Airlines?
It was the wife or girlfriend. When the guy had to go out and go into Area 51, because remember it was a salt plane. It was just a place where they were going to test the planes in the beginning. But after they did take some of the ships there, they made the underground stuff. But the guy that had he had to have the CIA security. The security guy's wife or girlfriend was named Janet, so that's why. So they called it that. He was in charge of security for the intelligence community, to go back and forth for the, whoever was working out there. There's a whole bunch of people. That's where that Rick Doty was sitting at one of those, Rick Doty, remember? Because you can't figure out why I won't give up on him. Because he was just doing his job. But there's a whole bunch of names that,
I want to get
just
back on,
because
we're all over the place. We're all over the place right now. I want to ask a question.
All right. Well, we haven't even got to the aliens yet. We may have to do that next time.
Well, I'm going to go.
All right.
We're going to do some more. But I want to get you on the aliens. So you're up on the ship. There's 5 ships outside of a wormhole or whatever that is. And you're up there with Tom in your book. That's what you said in your book. And it's all hidden in with all this other bullcrap, but you can find it if you're looking for the needle in the haystack. And you describe how you were. So they created, what they do, Karen, is they create a nice environment wherever you go. So I had an ex-boyfriend who was under Crystal City in Washington. And they have malls, and they have McDonald's, and they have everything that you would have above underground. So people who go there are comfortable. Well, they have the same things on board ship. But they can make whatever you want because it's kind of like Star Trek, right? So they can make you a hamburger, and it tastes like the one you get from McDonald's or the one you get from, Jack in the Box. They can be they can have the exact flavor.
It's 0 point energy. You can have anything.
Anything. So they have unlimited energy. So TJ, let me tell this story, then you can. TJ she arrives in her quarters. I wish I had the book, and and there's a closet full of clothes that fit her perfectly, just like she would have had if she would have bought them. It's decorated like she wanted. They know your mind, and they can. Well, we can imagine how they do it, but they know your mind, and I've seen this happen. I've been in a meeting with 100,000 individuals that were no two of the same species. So there's at least 100,000 races, but they said there's so for that meeting, we made an amphitheater which would rise up very high, and as the people
I sent you one.
Talking. Let me finish.
Remember?
As the people that were in the amphitheater, the different species would ask a question, their face would be highlighted, but their avatar would project down to who was talking on the floor. So I was down on the floor and I was reporting what it was like to be 21st century human, female, whatever, in my society, State of the Union address, what it's like. And so somebody asked me a question, and so that person stood before me. But they could be in real life 12 feet tall, but we were the same height so we could see eye to eye. That's what you do in Tantra. In Tantra, you look in each other's eyes, and when you look in each other's eyes, you see all the way to creation. So there's total authenticity, total transparency. There cannot be a lie because you are at that moment like a Vulcan mind meld, oneness. So we're looking at each other, and the question answer being conveyed. Everybody in the amphitheater hears the answer in their own language, and they understand it, or whatever it is. It's all concepts and telepathic. But the main point I'm saying is we all co-created all 100,000 beings, that theater for that experience. And once we left, it was gone. So there was no need to have cities or things. Those things could be manifested in an instant and gone once you left. And that's what they did. They created whatever TJ needed to see. And so when you went up, it would be in your military, Navy, let's say. But when Tom went up, the whole ship was Army. And
Army.
He
liked the Army,
rankings. He liked the Army. TJ liked the Navy. So everybody was showing up in Navy uniforms. And yes, so we have.
It's weird.
Yeah, they have that ability to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the spacecraft that they bring down here, some of it would help if they would have let us talk to the right people. But they put these dumbass people that have degrees that only know what they know out of a book, and they can't think creative for themselves anymore. So they resent people that don't have their level PhD. So, and then Tom, they were had security underground in the tapes that Reagan wanted to know about, President Reagan, and those suckers deleted them because they didn't want to lose their. They wanted to retire. So I learned a lot that you can trust people, but you can't because it depends on the personality. I learned a lot.
What?
Huh?
This is a new story. What tapes?
In the secret programs.
Who's the they that deleted
tapes
them?
of going on the Gus, going on the ships because they weren't supposed to have them, number one, but of course they have the Army. Some of the people that work underground, they're the military, Army people. Or Air Force, the guy that was in charge of all the security, because he didn't. Tom, I'll just tell you, screw it. All right, I don't know if y'all are ready for this shit, but I'm just going to say it. They made naked. His daughter, they made like AI. You know how we're doing people now, but back in the 80s, they made an AI person walk off naked, and it was his daughter. And so he pissed all over himself. But anyway, it was really a bad scene because he was in charge of the underground, where the space. No, not Tom, the general, the guy you were asking who deleted the tapes. The man that was in charge of all that stuff that the government and the Pentagon and all those people that don't know, remember when Strom Thurmond, when it was involved in this, and him and Philip Corso, remember, and they asked me.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, it was the guys like them. They're in uniform. They're people that are real humans on the planet. Gus made the AI walk off onto the ramp off of the spacecraft. And it was this guy that was in charge of the mountain, so to speak. His daughter. And he couldn't tell the difference.
Okay.
And he pissed all over himself. But they deleted the files.
Okay, you're saying when you were in the ship of God, you were in Gus, which is the Roswell craft. The ship made
one of them
read the general's mind and made a avatar of his daughter, and then the daughter walked off the ship, and he saw his daughter.
Yeah, but I can't admit or deny what you just said about him reading the mind. It's how you put it together in your mind. That's your perception.
How would they get the image of his daughter?
Because they can see everything. They're pure energy. They can see everything.
Somehow they got the image of his daughter.
Yeah.
They could have got your daughter, but they got his daughter because they wanted to affect him.
Right.
So he would shit his pants, basically.
Right.
You know, wow.
So the AI walks off the ship onto the ramp naked, and all the technicians in the white, they had picture it like it was like the mountain, Close Encounters of the Third Kind. Groups of those people freaked out, and it was a real bad scene because he knew it was his daughter, but they didn't. But anyway, it's all gone. It doesn't matter. The whole scene is deleted from reality, in this reality, because it was underground.
Well,
and the Army doesn't know it even happened unless all those people were sworn to secrecy, or they'd kill their next of kin, or they were from Germany, or all these countries. The people are sworn to, will kill your family if you talk about it. So they just never talk about it. They're all under orders, So what they did with me is I can't tell.
Was this that episode where the Gus came alive? The first time they got it to activate?
One of them.
Okay, it was
during that first 2.5 months or 6 months. Yeah. When we went to Texas, remember, we did go to Texas, but you know how you're saying I'm telling you my story, but you add all those little things like, the guy's mind, and I have the bare bones that I experienced, and then you have the fluff to put it together so your mind can make a story out of it. So that's what Tom and I were doing all the time with each other. He would say his story, I'd say mine, and we'd try to piece it together. So I think that's why Karen came along, because remember, I told you how much you and I have been working together so long, you almost need a third-party mediator. But Preston Nichols, she knew about him, and Preston, I was wanting Preston to help us because he knew about he knew some stuff because of Brookhaven and because of the sound waves. And because he was using that vibra sound, remember what I told you that they used, and I became a dolphin, and so now Karen does.
Well, see,
you talk, Karen.
Let Karen talk.
Back in '95, I just got this video, the old timey video that we used to get, looked like a 5x7 book. From it was a black market video, and I don't know how he even knew who I was. And I got it in the mail, and there was a sticky note on there. It said "Enjoy!" Karen. And it was from Preston Nichols. I don't even know how he knew me. Well, now I'm sure he knew me from another level. At that time, I wasn't attuned that much to this. And then
Did you know Vince?
No, I started trying to. No.
What do you say?
No, I didn't. Who?
Peter Moon.
Oh,
Vince.
No, I didn't.
That's okay.
I'd heard the name. Yeah, I've heard the name. He was with him up there, wasn't he?
In
Montauk.
He wrote the
I
books.
can't remember.
Peter
because I saw
Peter was Scientology.
Because I saw a picture. He sent me a picture of his house, and his whole house was computers, from ceiling to the roof. And and then all of a sudden, I just set out for no reason to find out more about the Philadelphia experiment, and I literally started researching Al Bielek, and I didn't know why or how I was doing it, and came across where he lived in Marietta, Georgia, and then I found out later that Paula, when she came to get me in 2012, knew them, and we're all connected. And so I remember this woman that while I was connecting with this Philadelphia experiment that they made the movie of and everything, and this one of the Allende was his last name, had some kind of a factory or some kind of a business in Garland, and there were supposed to be some stored ET stuff from there. And so a friend of mine who's an attorney, we went out there and tried to get into stuff and be childlike with the exploration mind. And some of the lights went off. It was close to dark, and we took out. We didn't do anything. We just wanted to see where it was. And we were actually.
Did you go to the building?
We went to the building.
Because I've been there.
There were lights all around it.
Do you? But
and I'm sure they.
Can you describe it in your mind for me? I want to see if it's the same one.
It looked just like a plain building, like a warehouse or something. And then there was also, we drove into some place. It looked like it didn't have a door to it. It looked like an empty barn. And then once, we didn't know why we were in there, and then we drove out, and then some red lights went off, and we were in a 4Runner, and we left because we didn't know what to do or why we were out there. And so then somehow I was put in touch with this woman named Beth in Tucson, and who knew these contacts. I don't even know how I was doing it, kind of like you a little bit. And,
I do, because ETs to do it to you.
Well,
I call them ETs, but
that's how they were doing it.
Direct you to put the pieces together.
That's right. That's right. And she was telling me that her father had been one of those German scientists that had come over with Einstein and some of the others, and had helped
paperclip
with the exactly, and to go into the portals, and to. If they wanted to go through the portals, they could. And she saw her own father do that. And she said it was very painful to break down the material body to do that. And I forgot her last name. And I wondered to this very day, she said, you're young. And she said, you're very curious and you're a seeker. She said, you need to meet David Childress. And I said, who's that? She said, well, he is... he explores like you do and researches, and he lives in Illinois, and that's it. So she mentioned just a few names. And then later, after they put me together with Starworks and Paula and everything, then everything fit together. All the pieces came together. Because
not all of them, not yet. Wait till you get all this.
Not all of them. Not all of them. I know. And then because I had a student come from a Unity church, and from a sermon from there, and she came to her lesson with me, and she said, "Guess what? They have a UFO conference in Glen Rose." I said, "Are you kidding?" And so I told you about that I had was when the Stephenville lights came on, and I was working with that CEO and Robert, and our CPA said, "Don't let her go out there because they'll fire her." And he said, "You can't do it." He said, "You can't because you promised, Randy, that you'd go through with these projects." And I said, "Okay, I won't." And he said, "If you're supposed to be tied in with it, it'll come to you." So then 3 years later, in 2012, is when Judy came in from her session at the Unity and said, there's a UFO conference in Glen Rose about Stephenville lights. So I said, well, let's pick up the phone and call and get a reservation. So we did, and Paul answered the phone, and she was from Rome and here, and then I had lived in Rome. We spoke a little Italian, and she said, "You're my speaker down there." I said, "Are you kidding?" I said, "I've never spoken in front of a group of people like that." And she said, "I'm going to do it for you. You're supposed to do it. You'll be it." And I had just published my CDs, and everything just spins real fast, And, I've done a lot of family of origin counseling, worked with families and, that sort of thing, but never 200 or 300 people. And so I did, and I was really scared to death, and I looked terrible, and I was swollen from my autoimmune stuff. And but anyway, she was fantastic, and she introduced me to the next big step. And all of her conferences are really fantastic. She's great, and has done everything.
I haven't met her. Janet has. Now, see, I've never been in any UFO stuff. I was never allowed. I don't know if it was the government or the ETs or.
Well, it's
probably.
And I just wanted
because
to let you know that
know.
we're off the air right now. This is going into recording, but we're off the air. We're not.
We are
broadcasting
right
Well, they
now.
hadn't cut us off yet? Let me look at mine.
Oh yeah.
They haven't kicked us off.
I don't know.
Normally they kick us off. Yeah, we're still recording.
We could get kicked.
I hope we don't.
I don't know. Well, do you want to do this again, Karen?
Yeah,
I think
go ahead.
Isn't this great?
Because she's just getting into her. Y'all, that's Paula Harris, right? You're talking about Paula Harris?
Yeah.
Because you just said
so
Paula.
Let's do these for teasers.
I'm sorry.
Teasers for next week. Let's do this for teasers because I don't know what. I don't want to say all this stuff.
I think we've got a lot of pieces
recorded.
of the puzzle. I think we've got a lot of pieces of this puzzle coming together, and it's like a jigsaw puzzle.
There's a lot of mine.
Little. The three of us are together for a reason because when I was sitting back listening, I could just feel a lot of ETs and different dimensional things shifting in here and everywhere. And I mean, I can just tell you so much. I know Robert and I were driving to Houston, and we lost 3 hours, and we weren't going to Houston. And we ended up halfway in Houston, and we just went up the street. Yeah. So we've been through a lot of that.
I lived in Houston, lost time in Houston. I lost a lot of time in Houston. And they would show me to spin things.
Yeah.
They spun a merry-go-round. I would ask if that was happening, or they'd turn all the lights off or on. So I learned to talk to them to anybody else, you can't tell them this, but if we're going to tell this story, we might as well put all the pieces together.
Thank you for using Blog Talk Radio.
Oh, there we go.
Goodbye.
Oh, there we go.
We're off.
Okay. So well, at least they got a little bit of it, didn't they?
Okay, I think we might have. Okay, let's do this next week. Let's end the show.
Yeah, this is really great. Isn't this interesting? It's like
I think we lost
putting all the pieces. Huh?
Are you
Hello?
still there, TJ? I
TJ?
hear. Can you hear me? No, I think
I can hear
gone.
you, Janet. Did she go?
Yeah.
This is fabulous, isn't it? This is fabulous.
So we
so
still
much
might be recording.
I'm being recorded.
I think we're still being recorded, but I think it's still recording on this end. Yeah, be careful what you're saying. Just want to let you know.
Yeah, absolutely.
Why don't we hang up and then I can call you privately? So let me end this episode.
Sure,
okay?
This has been wonderful.
So I just want to thank
great.
everybody.
And I just want to tell everybody how grateful I am for Paula Harris with Starworks USA. She's truly a genius, and she helped me learn how to speak. So there.
Yeah,
really.
She's a sweetheart.
She is.
Okay, I'm going to call you as soon as I hang up the show, but thank you so much, and love and blessings, and aloha. Thank you, everybody, for joining us.
Yeah, thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.